Say the prayer. हमें अपने मन को हमेशा संतुलित रखना है. इसी में हमारा आत्म विकास समाया हुआ है. वही में सर्वम ओम ओम ओम. आत्मनि में त्वम ओम ओम ओम. स्मारे स्मारे ओम ओम ओम. चित्तं शामय शामय ओम. स्मराणि सोऽहं ओम ओम ओम. शान्तं चिन्मयम् ओम माम् ओम. तटस्थं केवलम् ओम ओम ओम. स्मराणि शुद्धम् ओम माम् ओम. Okay. So today we'll be doing Sutra 47. And as I have been telling you that now we are dealing with some of the most fundamental things in our life. Many times what is necessary, what is fundamental is overlooked. And overlooked in a manner where we take certain things for granted. For example, we take our body for granted because every day morning we get up with energy, body is working. Only when there is a breakup, there is a problem, then we realize the importance of ability of the body to go wherever it wants to go. The simple thing like walking, simple moments. We don't pay attention to these things and we take them for granted. They are there, so we just use them. We don't understand their importance and we don't value it much. And that's why we don't pay attention to it. Like that, so many things are there. But one of the most fundamental things which we don't pay attention to is the process of knowing. We know, that is the most fundamental to life. Our life is possible. We are interacting with the world. We are knowing the world. We are enjoying the world. Why? Because we have the ability to know the world. We have the ability to interact with the world. So we take this knowledge, this ability as for granted. We don't think that it is important. Hardly it will be, drawing our attention to itself. But you see, there are certain people who are interested in these kind of things, like a psychologist. He is interested in knowing how do we know how our senses work, how the world and we interact, what is the relationship of the world with us, and what is the necessity for the world to be there for us, and what is this necessity on our part to know the world. So simple thing like knowing and experiencing this escapes our attention. We don't deeply think about it. We deeply think about films, we deeply think about unnecessary things also, but the fundamental things we don't pay attention to. But then there are people who are interested in it, and yogis are interested in knowing everything about the human life, how like a psychologist. So psychology also now he explains so many things, what is the process of knowing. But today's sutra is talking about this process of knowing. So we know that we interact with the world with the help of senses, but how do we know? How much do we know about the senses and how the senses are working? What exactly is happening when we say that we are looking at something? For example, we take any object in front of you, you look at it and immediately you know that you are knowing it and you have a name for it. So exactly what happened, through what process that knowledge was gained. This is a most fundamental thing. So now we saw that in Sutra 44, the knowable world was talked about. What the world comprises of according to Sankhya and Yoga. And I told you that it is not to be seen uh, as if it is a scientific study like physics and chemistry. No, it is the way world appears to us. It is the way we experience the world. As soon as we get up in the morning, how we experience the world, how do we perceive the world? That is what is important. And how do we experience? That was, important thing. So the way world appears in our experience, that was discussed in Sutra 44. We saw that 5 forms of bhutas, Panchamahabhutas, 5 elements are there. Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Shiti. These are the 5 bhutas. And these 5 bhutas have got subtle form. That subtle form is in the form of tanmatras, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. So this we have discussed, and then we saw how once we gain mastery over this kind of uh, bhutas, then what is the possibility? In what way the knowledge can be used? In what way it can affect us? In what way it can benefit us? That we saw in last two sutras, that is 46, 45, and 46. Now today we are venturing into totally opposite of what is there in the external world. That is what is inside us. How do we know the world? We know that we know the world with the help of senses. So now today's sutra is talking about mastery over the senses. How to gain mastery over our 5 senses. Which are the 5 senses? We know that the object of the senses is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So corresponding to this Vishayas, corresponding to these objects, there are 5 sense capacities, which are known as Jnanindriyas, or 5 senses or 5 organs of perception. So we perceive the world with 5 senses. Eyes are there, ears are there, nose is there, tongue is there, and the tactile sense is there. That is how we know the world. There's no other way we can know the world. Because somebody may say that, okay, we dream of the world, we intuit about the world, we get intuition about the external nature, but that will all happen when the first fundamental interaction at the basic level in the form of sensation has taken place. Even the dreams, one cannot dream of a thing which is not perceived already in some form or the other. So these are very fundamental and important things sutras are talking about. So mastery of senses is being talked about. And this sutra reads, first I'll read the sutra, then I will again go into the what is the process of knowing this whole thing. So the sutra reads, Grahana Svarupa Asmita Anvaya Arthavattva Samyama Indriya Jaya. ग्रहण स्वरूप अस्मिता अन्वय तथा अर्थवत्व इन 5 इंद्रिय रूपों में संयम करने से इंद्रिय जय होता है. By Samyama on the receptivity, essential character, eye sense, inherent quality, and objectiveness of the 5 organs of perception, mastery over them can be acquired. This is what the sutra reads. So sutra says by doing certain concentration process, mastery over the senses is gained. Now the question comes, why do we need this kind of mastery? It is a everyday experience how we are really subject to so many weaknesses of the senses. Our minds are drawn out through the visuals we have. Eyes are drawn to colors, forms, different kind of objects. We are attracted to them and mind is running after them. Similarly, we are drawn out to the sense of smell. We are interested in different kind of, that's why this scents and perfumes, it's a big industry. It's a billion-billion-dollar industry in the world because we are interested in smells. Same way sounds. In the whole lot of multi-billion world of music is there, and we are somehow caught up with the obsession of listening to good music. Now, you see, all these are sensory perceptions. Same way the taste, the entire world is after that. So restaurants and the food industry, for taste, people will do everything. And then the sense of touch, that is very important. It is guiding much of our life. So these five senses are important because that's how the world appears to us, and that's how we are knowing the world. So these five senses have to be understood. And what is at stake is here, how do we know? How do we experience the world? That has to be analyzed. Normally, we take it for granted. We have got the eyes, so we see it. We never question why the eyes are there, how the eyes are functioning. A psychologist, a biologist will study, and psychologists and biologists will tell us that how the eyes are functioning, what exactly happens in the process of perception through the eyes. So they will tell us. Same way, this is long back. Psychology, as we know, it came into existence almost 150 years back. That is, it became a science 150 years back, somewhere in 1875 onwards. Before that, psychology was part of philosophy. Psychology was not studied as a positive science. It's only when they started thinking in terms of studying something tangible in the study of human behavior, then psychology and the observable behavior patterns were accepted. Then psychology became a science, a positive science, where it is mind is being studied, or the body is being studied, behavior is being studied. That happened about 150 years back. But when what we are talking in sutras, that was said about 2500 years back. So they were interested in knowing how the senses are perceiving, what exactly happens. So that process has been now explained in this sutra. So as we saw what we know, we know that we know so much. If I ask you what all you know, you can list out, you can talk days together about your knowledge, or I can talk about my knowledge for days together. But essentially, what is the nature of this knowledge? What is the nature of this experience? So from that perspective, when we look at it, like scientists would reduce everything to certain fundamental principles. Example would be all the kind of moments which are there in the world, all the kind of motions which are there in the world, they can be reduced to only three kinds of basic motions which are given to us by Newton. Newton laid down three principles of motion, and every motion we come across, we experience in the world can be incorporated or can be falling under the one of these three fundamental principles which Newton found and gave it to us. So this is a scientific method where we observe the phenomena, we observe the external world, and then try to see the underlying principles behind it. And then certain hypothesis is formed, and that hypothesis is checked under certain circumstances. When that hypothesis is considered to be valid for most of the situations, then that is taking a form of scientific principle. So that is what Newton did. So yogis did it very long back. So they say what we know. If we look at the world, there are three things, and this is a very important thing. I'll tell you about in spiritual world how it is important. There are everything which is there in the by way of experience can be reduced only to three things. What are those three things? In Sanskrit, they are called grahya, grahan, grahita. So fundamentally, when we talk about our knowledge, only three things are there. And that also can be reduced to still two. So what is grahya? All that which is knowable is grahya. Whatever we are capable of knowing, that is grahya, knowable. So everything which we know is grahya. And how do we know that? We know millions of things, millions of objects in the world, colors, shapes, forms, names of the object. So many, names are there, objects are there. All these will fall under the category of grahya, whatever we are capable of knowing. So even from that perspective, our body is also grahya because we are knowing our body. From that perspective, if we look at the mind also becomes grahya because we are knowing our mind. When we are thinking something, we are aware that we are thinking something. When particular thoughts are there, we are aware that I'm thinking these kind of thoughts. So that also becomes grahya. But how exactly we know it? What is the process by which we say, so for example, if I show you something, for example, I show you this. The moment I showed it to you, immediately you identified the object, you know what it is. How did it happen? How did it happen? This is a grahya. And if I ask you, this is grahya, this is object, this is knowable. And if I ask you, what is it? You will say it is a pen. And I will say, how do you say that it is a pen? So you will say, I know it is a pen because I know this object is called pen. So immediately you will say, I know it, right? So between this I know it and between this grahya, what happened exactly? How did this object became known? How this object was known? And after knowing that, every one of us can say that this object is called pen. It is such a fundamental thing. It's such a basic thing of our life. And we hardly pay attention to this. So now, when we are talking about this process, the process of knowledge is the another thing which is known as Grahana. Grahana means reception. Reception, receptivity. We as a knowing entity have got certain receptivity capacity in our senses. That's why we are able to know this. So there is a receptivity in the eyes for the form, for the light. So eyes can see. There is a receptivity in the ears for the sounds. So we can hear the sounds. So this is reception. But is it enough that the ears are able to hear and the eyes are able to see? Do they make out the sense? Now, when I showed you this object, did your eyes tell you that this is a pen? So what told you it is a pen? I saw it. Without eyes, you could not have seen. See, without eyes, nobody could have seen this object, right? But did the eye tell that it is a pen? So eyes are doing something which is really mechanical. Eyes are doing something which is fundamentally necessary, but essentially they are not producing knowledge. They are not producing knowledge. The knowledge is being produced somewhere else. So when eyes look at this, the image is formed in the retina. That image is converted into signals and it is going to some higher center. That is how psychology would put it. And at some stage, this is being interpreted in the form of an object called pen. And then there is a certain amount of certainty element which is included there. You say that I have seen this kind of object. Now, all this is happening at the normal non-verbal level. It is not, the process I am explaining is very slow and very step by step, but it is happening very fast. The moment you look at the object, you say it's a pen. And in this process, a lot of things happen. A long chain of reactions, a long chain of happenings, events which were taking place inside the brain, inside the mind. And then finally there is a certainty. Oh, it's a pen. I know it's a pen because I have seen these kind of objects earlier. I have used them. I write with pen, so I know it is a pen. So to come to this kind of knowledge, there's a lots of entire process which is going on. We don't pay attention to that. Now that process is being explained in today's sutra. So this sutra is dealing with grahana, that is reception, how exactly the reception is taking place. But indirectly, it is also talking about the third entity which is there. What is that third entity? The knower. Who knows? The knowable is there and the knower is there. That's why the knowledge is there. Knowledge cannot happen without knower and the knowable. Knowledge is something in between. If everything is there but you are not there, how you will know? Objects might be there but objects will not be known. See, this is a very important psychological factor, and from scientific point of view also it is very important. The world is there but there is nobody to enjoy the world, there is nobody to see the world. What will be the significance of the world and what will be the value of that world? These are fundamental questions we have to really normally we don't bother about it, but these are important. And these have to be understood if you want to know about the truth. Actually, who's knowing everything? So this sutra is also indirectly talking about the third entity, that is knower, the grahita. So everything in the universe can be reduced to these three things: grahya, grahan, grahita. Knowable, process of knowledge, process of knowing, and the knower. So, if at all we want to understand the reality of the universe, reality of the world, the reality of our existence, then we'll have to know what is the true nature of Grahya, the knowable, what is the true nature of Grahan, that is reception, and what is the true nature of Grahita, who knows. We say, I know. If I ask you, who knows it? You will say, I know it is a pen. But then all the time we are using this word, I know, my knowledge, I know. But we have never asked ourselves what is the nature of this I, from where this I came into existence. We never ask that question. We take it for granted, like we take for granted everything which is available in the world. The food is there, we eat and we enjoy. It is taken for granted. Food has got taste and it is eatable, knowable. So we are enjoying it. But here it is little uncomfortable to ask these questions. So perhaps that is why nobody asked, and then one can take them for granted. But from Sankhya point of view, one can go still further, which I'll talk about some very fundamental principle which we experience every day. So even these three things can be reduced to two, and the process of knowing can get included in the both of entities which we are talking about. So at some place, as I keep studying about the Sankhya literature, I came across two words: aham, naham. Aham, naham. This we experience every day. Whenever we get up in the morning, every morning when we get up, what happens? We perceive ourselves as existing human beings. I am there, and apart from me, what is there? Everything else which is there: the people, the relatives, the objects, the house, the everything. So there are essentially only two categories: I am there, and the entire world is there. So the world is in opposition to this I. So these two fundamental things have to be known. One has to know the exact nature of the world. One has to know the exact nature of the knower. That is I. So who am I? And ultimately, this knowledge of I is also getting included when they are talking about Grahana, because reception is there, but who's receiving it? Who's at the other end? On one hand, there is the objective world. On the other hand, who's there? So it is Grahita. So five forms of receptions are there. Now, when we pay attention to our eyes, so we'll take the example of eyes. And five things have been talked about in Sutra. Grahan. What is Grahan? As I told you, Grahan is reception. It is not enough that there is a knowability in the object. It is the important thing that our organism should have the capacity to know. Then only the knowledge can take place. So suppose if a person is blind and all the beautiful flowers are there, gardens are there, trees are there, but person is blind, then what will be the use of all those flowers, beauty around? It will be waste, because it will not be fundamentally known by that individual. So he requires the eyes. So that's why we will all five senses are equally important. But just to understand, we'll take the example of eyes, right? So when we look at we look at this object again, we will look at it. So now just become aware. Just become aware as to what happened when I showed you this pen for the first time. What happened exactly? So the moment I said this, the moment I showed it to you, you said it is a pen, right? You didn't tell loudly because all are silent, but inside your mind you said it is a pen, right? Now, if I tell you it is a fact, it is a perception, it is a knowledge. The moment you saw this, you decided it is a pen, it is a determined knowledge. But now I want you to dwell more deeply on this and tell me a little more about this pen. So tell me a little more about this pen. Any one of you can just.
It's orange in color, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Plastic body.
Okay. Okay. Now you see, in reception, two things have happened. And both things happened simultaneously, but in first round of knowledge, you did not think about that. When you said it is a pen, did you think about the color? Or did you think about the material from which it is made? You are thinking about the material, you are thinking about the color or the specific qualities of this pen only when I am asking you for more details. Otherwise, you were not thinking about it. So that means this object has got two features. One is the general feature. General feature is that it is a pen. And specific feature is that what is the specific feature? One is blue, the other is orange. So now first pen was the general nature of this object. General nature of both this object is that they are pen, but specific is that one is blue color, one is orange color. So every object, our senses are, when they are perceiving, they perceive in entirety all the specific features as well as the general features, because things have got general features also and also subtle features. Subtle features or the specific features are perceived when we go deep into the perception. Otherwise, generally, for example, again, I'll show you something which is okay. This general feature. Now, this is a book, and anything which has got this kind of form is a book, right? But there is a peculiarity to this book. The specific thing is there. Only when we will inquire deeply, we will go into the specificity of the book. So this general feature and special features, both these are important, because when we are talking about perception, many things we reflect back and then we are able to say that I saw this. So first we are like, in case of sounds, we hear a sound, it is like any other sound. Now, if I make a sound, you will say, oh, it is a sound. But then I will ask you, you are perceiving right, it is a sound. But tell me, how is this sound? Then you will ask whether I like this sound. Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? So if it is pleasant, you will say it is a pleasant sound. So now we are going into the specific area of the sound. So this way, every object will have these features. And after these, this is essential to know because we are talking about the totality of the perception and the essential characteristics of the senses. That is the second part. This is one perception. So when we go according to the example we selected, the eyes. Now, can the function of the eye can it be carried out by the ears? Can we see through the ears? So eyes are very, very specifically designed organs which can receive certain kind of stimuli, certain kind of signals, which are in the form of light, which are in the form of colors, which are in the form of forms, shapes. So this is what eye can do. So eye has got a very, very specific formation. This is the second form of the indriya. First form is general reception, receiving information from the grahya. That receptivity, that grahana is the first form. Second form is that specifically how senses are perceiving. Eyes will only see, ears will only hear, tongue will only taste, nose will only smell, and tactile sense will only touch and sense the tactile. So these are very, very specific functions of the five organs. So this we have to understand. This is the second form of the organs, sense perceptions. So this is known as Svarupa, essential Svarupa. We saw in the case of in case of Bhutas also, we saw there it was different words were there, but out of that some words were very common. Here we saw Sthula, Swarupa, Sukshma, Anvaya, Arthavattva. These five words were there. And here there are five words: Grahana, Swarupa, Asmita, Anvaya, Arthavattva. So Swarupa, Anvaya, Arthavattva, these three are the common words which were there in Sutra 44, which are there in Sutra 47 also. So second form of Indriya is what? Second form of our sense organs is what? Each sense is a conglomerate of certain faculties which will be perceiving certain limited area, specific area. So ears will listen to the sounds, tongue will taste, eyes will see. This is the second form. What is the third sense, third form? Now this is where we normally don't pay attention. What are senses? From where they have come? How we are able to see? So I gave you, in the example when I explained, I gave you indication, I gave you sufficient hint what we have to look at it. So when I said, what is this? You said the pain. And I said, how do you know? What you would say? I know it. I know it. So senses are working for whom? Your senses are working for whom? Who's saying that this is a pain? I am saying this. So senses are working for whom? I. For our Asmita. This is the third form of the senses. And that also indicates that these senses are nothing but extension of I sense. Somebody had expressed in previous Sutra we were discussing, some people had expressed doubt how Abhiman is the Upadan Karana or material cause of senses. All our senses are extension of our ego. They are extension of our self. They are extension of Asmita. Asmita means ego, Abhiman, I sense. So I sense is the third form, and all the senses will refer to a certain authority. So when I see something, when I see, what happens, the process is the moment image is formed on the eyes, it will be referred back to the mind. And mind will open the old files. Mind will, from the memory, identify the object. I have seen this already. I know that this is a pen. So mind will refer to the old files, old memories, and come to a, and then finally, this will be determinate in the form of I see a pen. If I ask you what is the piece of knowledge which you are getting, what you are experiencing, I show you and I ask you, what is your experience? You will say, I see a pen. This is what you can say. I see a pen. So all this process is being referred to I sense. So this Abhiman, ego sense is the Upadan Karan or material cause. Upadan Karan is technical word. Ego is the material from all the sense capacities are developed. So our ego is at the basis of this. And then that is the Asmita, third form. The third form of Indriya is I sense, Asmita or Ahankar, which is the material cause of sense. Cognition is the active state of I sense in each particular organ of perception. So unknowingly, the moment you see an object, immediately your I sense gets activated through the senses. So objects are affecting our senses. So reception is what? Reception is action of senses on the object. Now there is a sense stimuli called light. The light is reaching the eyes and we are able to see. So there is a response in the eyes. There is activity in the eyes which is making contact with the light. So the perception of light is taking place. That is reception. That is Grahana. And then the second part, we saw the eyes have got specific capacity. Ears have specific capacity. And third form, we are looking at Asmita, eye sense. So every time we look at any object, immediately our eye sense gets activated through the senses. And then when we have to talk about it, we say that I see a tree, I see a beautiful flower, I see a car passing, I see a dog, I see a cat. All that will be narrated or explained in the form of I see, because I gets activated and there's a change taking place in the eye sense. So there's the moment some kind of interaction is taking place between the object and the senses, immediately the eye sense gets activated. That's how the eye sense is getting strengthened again and again, and eye sense becomes stronger and stronger. And then third is the Anvaya. So from where the eye sense has come, we normally don't ask this question. We don't ask this question. When we look at the mind, we take our mind for granted. So now you see, it is not that the law of motion was not in play, not in existence before Newton. Newton is the classical physicist. physics person who has given us these three fundamental laws. But it doesn't mean that the law of motion did not exist before Newton. Or he also told us about the law of gravitation. It is not that before Newton, law of gravity was not there. Things were falling to the ground from the sky, but nobody categorized it. Nobody systematized it. So now, the way Newton analyzed the falling of apple, the way Newton analyzed the movement and motion of things, same way yogis have analyzed what is the nature of this eye, from where the eye has come. So in case of bhutas, we saw from where bhutas have come. Five Mahabhutas, from where they have come? They have come from Tanmatras. And from where Tanmatras have come? There we saw that ultimately it is the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So even this Ahankar is also made up of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Our Buddhi is also made up of three gunas. Well, how do we know that? How do we know that? Now, the basic function of mind is to know. But is our ability to know all the time same, or it becomes little dull sometimes, it becomes little sharp sometimes, or it becomes so agitated that we are not able to know anything? See, these are the three stages our mind passes through all the time. Throughout the day, this happens. When we begin something, we are very sharp, very focused, very attentive. But if we persist for some time, then little tiredness may come, and then we start withdrawing, or we may get distracted. So the Sattva guna is not there for a very long time. It will be overtaken by Rajas. Then if we continue, now imagine you are fond of movies. So you keep on watching movies, one after another, one movie, second movie, third movie, fourth movie. After watching 4 or 5 movies, what will happen? Physically, what will happen? You will be seeing, but you will not be seeing. All the images will become blurred, or, ultimately a stage may come when the TV is going on, the movie is going on, but we are not perceiving it because mind has become too tired. So, this experience itself tells us that the mind is made up of three gunas, because it gets tired due to activity, and if activity is not there, the perception is not possible, and after a while it becomes dull, and then we fail to know, we fail to perceive the way normally we do it. So this cyclic process is going on. Every day morning we get up fresh and we have got energy for the whole day. But if we remain awake and continue working for a very long time, we'll get tired. And then the perception which was there at the morning time may not be, same perception after 4, 5, 6, 8 hours of working. Then the perception later stage will be very dull, because our focus will be very less, energy will be. So now all these, these are the things which are telling us that everything is made up of three gunas. So that fourth factor, of which ahankar is also made, our body is also made, our senses are also made, even body also, we have got energy. But if because energy is there, so we start walking. How long can we walk? That energy supply is limited. As long as rajas is there, we will be able to walk. If the rajas gets depleted, what will happen? We'll fall down. We'll have to stop and take rest. Otherwise, we cannot go further, because rajas is depleted now. So what has taken over? Tamas has taken over. And when tamas has its play for sufficiently long time, suddenly you'll find tamas is being replaced by sattva. So again we regain energy, again we start functioning. So continuously this process, in case of gunas also, bhutas also, in case of our indriyas also. This is important. This is how we have to understand how to keep our mind sattvic. Yoga says that if you go according to normal principles, this cycle will go on. This vicious cycle of sattva, rajas, tamas, it will go on, and you will be a prey to it. But if you want to understand the gunas, and if you want to modify them, if you want to bring about a little change, then you'll have to think deeply about it, and then find out ways how sattva can be retained for longer time, how sattva can be maintained for longer time, or taking periodical rest, taking periodical break, we can maintain the sattvic level. If we continuously go on working, if we go on doing things, So even in this knowledge of sattva, rajas, tamas has got practical implication and practical use in our day-to-day functioning. Communication, for example. Now you are in a very rajasic mind or tamasic mind, and I am in sattvic mind, and I am trying to say something very, very important. But do you think that the communication will get completed? That communication can get completed when the speaker and the listener both are in sattvic state. Then very good communication take place. Now, what is the practical implication of this? Very simple thing. Your children are educated. No, let us no children all I see all are grown up. They have got grown up children. So let us talk about husband wives. It will be better example. Let us talk about husbands and wives. Now your husband comes very tired from office, and you can make out he's very tired, and you have got something very important to tell to your husband. And he's tired. And the moment he comes, he says that I want to take rest now. Will it be right moment or opportune moment to communicate something important to him? You might be in sattva, but he is in tamas. Do you think he will be in a receptive mood to understand what you are saying or understand the full importance of what you want to communicate? So for that, what is needed? Some understanding is needed, that let the husband's mind come into sattvic frame of mind where he is able to be receptive. And then when he is receptive and if he communicate, then that communication can take place. These are the practical things which are there in life. So if we understand these principles of sattva, rajas and tamas in senses also, because mind is also a sense organ. It is 11th sense. Ubhay indriya bolte hain usko. Ubhay indriya. Ubhay indriya means it is the master of all the five organs of action, 5 organs of sense perception. Mind is the master. So mind also, is going through this process of dullness, sharpness. So we have to create the right frame of mental state to be able to communicate. Or for that matter, we want to understand something very, very complicated. Now, so say, for me, sutras were very, very complicated. I will sit many times, I will sit 2 hours together, 3 hours together, studying sutra and trying to understand what these sutras are trying to. So long back, it happens, the journey started in somewhere in 1986. And my family, my wife used to wonder why I'm spending so much time with a particular book and studying. So now you see, even reading something like Sutra, or you want to study Bhagavad Gita, or you want to read some religious scripture, the right frame of mind has to be there. The calmness has to be there. The tranquility has to be there. The peace of mind has to be there to be able to understand the significance and importance of what is being read. So it requires certain mental state. Without that, it is not possible to understand things. So that's why certain conditioning is required. This concept is very beautifully brought out in Yoga Institute Yogasana practices. When I started learning, the first thing which I learned was conditioning. Why conditioning is needed? Not everywhere this conditioning is taught. Understand? But for doctor and founder, they were very, very sharp, and they understood that a person who has rushed from office to come to Yoga Institute, immediately if he starts doing asanas, he will not get benefits of the asanas. So what is needed to be done? His mind has to be still. His mind has to calm down. So how to calm down the mind? You sit quietly and you pay attention to your breath. Observe your breath. So when we are observing our breath for 5 minutes, what happens? The mind undergoes change. Mind becomes sattvic. Mind becomes focused. And then when we do some asanas, some physical movements, there will be a lot of awareness there. We will be able to learn from the asana. That's why yogasanas are always to be done in a very, very mindful manner, in a very slow manner, in a very deliberate, in a very conscious manner. If we do mechanically something, it will not give us any knowledge, in-depth knowledge about our body, our mind. Only when we move slowly with focus, with concentration, all that is sattva. When sattvic mind is there and we do something, we will acquire more knowledge. Now, all this is part of the process of knowledge. All this is part of the process of knowing. Whatever we are experiencing, in that this is a fundamental understanding we need to have. That when the mind is in sattvic frame, then knowledge is better. So this is the fourth form which they have talked about. And the fifth form is again the Arthavattva. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of knowing? Why do I know? Why the world is there? So, like, if we ask the scientists, they are not able to answer this. But then science, the yoga and Sankhya, they said that we all have a spiritual essence in all of us. We all have spiritual essence. Normal people, religious people will call it Atma, soul. Yoga would call it Purusha or Chaitanya, Shuddha Chaitanya, Jiva. So these are the different names. So these experiences are taking place for the development, for the growth and development of this Jiva, the consciousness which we have, for its growth. So that's why, all these experiences. Now, again, it is a very practical thing. Look at our own lives. Each one of us can look at our own lives. We have grown from our childhood. Whatever we have experienced in our life, we have grown in understanding. We now know things are in a much better way. We know for certain how things are. But then this is not enough. Yoga would say go little deeper. Go little deeper and understand why certain things are happening, why we are experiencing certain things. And once we have learned certain things, once we are satisfied with that experience, then what happens? That experience, that object will lose its value for us. It will no longer be important for us. Then perhaps we will move on to the another object, another thing which is more important for learning. So learning process is going on. So for this learning process, only this entire experience world is there. The world is providing experience. We are experiencing so that we can grow. In that journey of experiencing, the world is the ground on which we are thriving, on which we are living, through which we are experiencing and we are growing. So according to Sankhya, this is what is the purpose. That is the fifth form. That is the Arthavattva. So bhoga and apavarga. Again, why experience? So that we can grow. If we are stuck, then we will remain stuck and we will not be able to grow. Once we have grown, then newer kind of experiences will. How long it will go on? If we go according to modern science, the world is going on. As long as the life is there, it will go on. And if somebody doesn't believe in next birth, he will say that everything will end with death. But one who believes in transmigration of soul, one who believes that there are many births we are taking. When we die in this life, we are reborn in another way, in another form. Again we die, again we are reborn. So those who believe in that, they will say that continuous. It is a continuous journey. Until the time we have exhausted all our experiences and we say now no more experiences. I don't want to experience any further. No more experiences. Like Gautam Buddha. He went through 3 experiences of pain and he said, I want to find the truth. He found the truth and he said, ultimately, desire is the root cause of all problems. So let me not have desire. Then what will happen? Gautam Buddha said, if you stop desiring, what will happen? Total stoppage of desire is what is nirvana. That is what is liberation. So Buddha is satisfied in himself. No more desires, because desires will give rise to pain. Desire will give rise to experience. He doesn't want to have any other experiences. Whatever experiences are there, they are enough. So that is the ultimate thing. So now this sutra is also indicating towards this entity, spiritual entity, which is attaining nirvana. Which is attaining. So it is a different thing that philosophically they talk about this entity in different manner, different concepts are there related to this reality. But Sankhya calls it Purusha, Yoga calls it Purusha, Drashta, Seer. So these are the terms which are used. So that will come little later on. But here they are talking about now objective world we have talked about. Bhutas we know what is the nature of external world. Now we are knowing what is the nature of the internal world. When eyes are seeing what is happening, whom they are referring to, and behind that eye sense what is there, and behind that eye sense the 3 gunas are there. Why the 3 gunas are there? Why 3 gunas are evolving? Because they want to provide experience. That is why 3 gunas are. So this is the again, a very, very technical kind of sutra, but these are very important questions that how do we know? Process of knowing. What do we know? Who is knowing? What makes the knowing possible? Why the knowing is there? All these fundamental questions are being addressed in this particular sutra. So if we take things for granted, maybe it is not important at all. But if we pay attention to why we are going through certain experiences, then perhaps these questions become important. And for some people, these questions are important. Like I told you about psychologists. Psychologists will tell the same thing which I told you about the perception. But if you ask them that ultimately why this perception, they also talk about self-consciousness. You see, psychology also talked about self. Every person, every being, every living being has got self-consciousness. So psychology agrees with that. But then what is the nature of this self-consciousness and what is behind the self-consciousness? That's where psychology stops and it doesn't go further. But yoga and Sankhya would go further. They have gone further and they have explained. So these are the things which are stated in sutras, and that's how we are discussing. And then again, a very, very fundamental thing, the knowledge which we are, is that knowledge right knowledge or wrong knowledge? This is another fundamental question. Whatever we are knowing, we say, everybody feels proud. Suppose if we have got degree or we have got big age, we are 60, 70 years, oh, I am 70 years old, I know the world. I have known so many things, I have got tremendous experience. Okay, we know it. But is whatever we are knowing, is that the right knowledge? Is that the helpful knowledge? Or it is not helpful knowledge? This is another fundamental question which comes. So ultimately, this process of knowing the external world and knowing the internal world of our being, we will have to come to a certain understanding where we are able to determine whether I am having right kind of knowledge or not. Because right kind of knowledge is very essential. Right kind of knowledge only gives viveka, discrimination. Discrimination. What is discrimination? When something is happening and we are responding to it, so whether I should respond or I should not respond. This is the choice and free will we human beings have. So something is happening, whether I should respond to it or I should not respond to it. So that will be determined by what? It will be determined by right and wrong knowledge. If the wrong knowledge is there, perhaps we will act and then we will suffer. If the right knowledge is there, perhaps we will desist from acting. So right knowledge will always lead to viveka. And this viveka is not only about the right and wrong, small and big and desirable and undesirable, but it is also about what is real and what is unreal, what is truth and what is falsehood, what is the ultimate reality. About that also, that knowledge will be related. So lots of things are interwoven here, but very briefly I have given you an entire picture of how it is happening. Because unless we go through this process, unless we become aware of all these things, we will not be able to reach the fundamental entity called Atma, or the soul, or the spirit. Various names are there, or the Purusha, or even some people say even the God. For even God also, somewhere one has to have this kind of understanding. One has to have that viveka. So whatever is not God, I don't want. I want only God. So this is the line of thinking of a worshipper. So he says that all the worldly things, all the worldly experiences are not really desirable because they are temporary and they produce a lot of pain. So what doesn't produce pain? What is ultimately giving peace? It is the thought of God. It is God himself. So this is also another way of looking at things. So this completes the whole picture of why we are experiencing. Ultimately, one has to really go to the spiritual essence. And why I'm saying this, there's a very great Marathi saint, Maharashtrian saint, whose works are very important. And recently, in another class, I was talking about him, Samartha Ramdas. They say that he was Shivaji Maharaj's guru. So Samartha Ramdas has listed out various topics, various fields of knowledge. This is various kinds of, and we know that, physics is there, chemistry is there, biology is there, anthropology is there, studying electricity is there, magnetism is there. Now computers are there. In computer, hardware is there, software so many fields of knowledge is there. We go on acquiring knowledge. Various fields of knowledge is there. But ultimately, what is the important knowledge for human being? For a spiritual being, it is the self-knowledge, knowledge of the self, self-realization, Atma Jnana. So Samartha Ramdas says, Jnana manje Atma Jnana. The real knowledge is knowing your own self. Same thing is being said by another great yogi. Who's that great yogi? Whose yoga we are following? All over the world, his yoga is being followed. Gorakshnath. So Gorakshnath says, Swadehe ena janamti katham siddhanti yogi. If you don't know anything about your body, if you don't know how your mind is functioning, if you don't know anything about your own self, how you can conquer the world? How you can succeed in the world? For succeeding in the world also, you will have to know something about yourself. The more you know about yourself, the better you can have knowledge of the world. These are the words of these great sages. So that whole gamut of things is there, and this sutra is a part of knowing that. So somewhere one has to pay attention to the self. One has to understand how the knowledge is taking place, what kind of knowledge is there, for whom the knowledge is there, how I am using this knowledge. Some people say, oh, my purpose in life is to gain knowledge. Okay, but for what? For what? Where are you going to use knowledge? How you are going to use that knowledge? What is the purpose of acquiring knowledge? One cannot just go on acquiring knowledge, and then there's our hardware is very limited. How much knowledge we can acquire in this limited space? It's not a very big space there. So very limited knowledge we can acquire. So if we make it a purpose of life to go on acquiring knowledge, to what end? Ultimately, where it will lead to? These are the questions we have to ask. So just acquiring knowledge for the sake of knowledge is not a very desirable thing, if you understand. And why waste time? And now so there is absolutely no time to waste, because now everything is available at the fingertip. In Google, you just type a word and all the knowledge is available. So you don't require to store it here. What is the necessity for that? This is on the lighter side. So time is up.
Despite of having the knowledge, everybody having the spark of divinity and everybody having the knowledge, despite of that, heinous acts get committed.
Yeah.
So how does one,
See,
process one's knowledge?
See,
That,
if the emphasis is on knowing the self, if we understand ourselves that there are certain happenings, certain events in which I tend to respond in a certain manner, I tend to react in this manner, and then when we analyze why I am reacting in this manner, so we may go a little deeper into our motivation and we understand what is happening. Maybe the fear is there, maybe the threat is there, maybe the attachment is there. Maybe we are having some kind of resentment, we have got some kind of anger. Ultimately, whenever we are, I can see that the question you are raising is our knowledge failing us in trying circumstances. This knowledge doesn't help us when we are going through challenges of life. So even when we are going through challenges of life, if the emphasis is on knowing our own self, then we will understand ourselves better, and we will know why we are responding in a certain way. Then perhaps the correction is possible. Then perhaps the event which is taking place, it will be viewed in a correct perspective, objectively, and then we will be able to deal with it in a much more effective manner if we have this knowledge of the self. That is how it can help. Otherwise, it is difficult. Because theoretical knowledge everybody has, but then when it is at the moment of crisis where the knowledge is tested and capacity is tested. And ultimate growth of the human being is in dealing with the issues, dealing with the problems. And problems are at various levels. They are at the physical level, in the form of health, in the form of capacities. They are at the interpersonal level, in the relationship, husband, wife, children, mother, father, friends, society, family, colleagues, or it could be in the form of right now what is going on. We have got terrorist.
Exactly. I was referring actually to that.
Yeah, yeah. So the crisis in the world right now, we face the terrorist attack. How to deal with these things? How to deal with the crisis, economic crisis which is going on? Some people are day in day out worried about the share market which is going down because all their uh, portfolio is showing red, red, red. So various issues are there. See, the person who knows more about himself will be able to deal with all the issues in a little better manner. That is what yoga says. So always be aware of self. It's a very simple statement by a simple principle of yoga. Know yourself better, you will be able to deal with problems in a much better way. Okay. If there are no questions, we'll stop.